Good evening, Cayman. Good evening, world. You're tuned in to Real Talk, Love and Lies, the late night space where we put love, sex, lies, and all the messy in between on the table without the fake perfection. I'm your host, Alfred and Matilda. We're not therapists, we're not relationship gurus, just people with a mic, some life experience, and a big curiosity about why we love the way we do. And as always, our real co hosts are you, the listeners. Your stories, your dilemmas, your voice notes, your Alfred, don't call my name on here, That's what shapes this show. If you're new here, this is where we talk about honesty, about relationships and betrayal, laugh so we don't cry, and ask the questions most people only whisper about in group chats. So get comfortable, plug in your headphones, or turn the volume down low if the kids are still awake. This is Real Talk, Love and Lies with Alfred and Matilda, and we're just getting started.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, Alfred.
Hi, Tilda.
I am looking for my microphone, so I'm just using my computer mic for the minute, but I know we have a couple of things to talk about while I look, right?
Yeah.
I'm a hot mess today, okay? So just bear with me. My voice is going again, and it's been up and down listen, this flu season has been horrific for the people in my life. So I
Wow.
don't know, I don't know how you're doing over there, but boy, it rough.
Mm. Well, tonight's episode includes discussion of sexual assault, sexual harassment, grooming, coercive control, physical violence, and drugging/alleged drug facilitated assault, as portrayed in a Netflix documentary and related public reporting. Now, we know that these topics can be distressing, so Tilda and we advise listener discretion. If this content is too heavy for you right now, please do take care of yourself first, pause, skip this episode, or come back when you feel ready. Just a quick disclaimer: Real Talk Love and Lies is a documentary show. We are discussing themes raised in a public documentary and wider public conversation. We are not investigators and we are not making findings of fact. Some matters discussed involved allegations which may be disputed, and nothing we say should be taken as proof of wrongdoing. We're not providing legal, medical, or psychological advice. We also ask our audience no naming private individuals, no doxing, and no spreading unverified claims in the comments. We can talk about culture, consent, power, and accountability without turning this into rumor radio. But if you or someone you know is affected by sexual violence or abuse and needs support in Cayman, you can contact the Cayman Islands Crisis Center 24-hour line at 943-2422. If you're in immediate danger, please call 911. So today's show, we're going to be looking at the Diddy documentary on Netflix. When power
Yeah.
meets consent.
I feel like we need to start with like a bit of a recap because I don't know how much everyone has watched. I know that this is a big one. Like this is the story of the moment, right? This is the hot story of the moment. It's so funny because the Epstein files have so many similar things in them to the Diddy conversation, but this has just taken over everything that I tell you. I don't know what it is, right? I watched it and I am just as guilty as anyone else of being completely sucked into it. And I actually called you earlier on this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you have to watch this thing. We have to talk about it because it's such a crazy experience. It's such a crazy thing as a watcher to experience because, well, I'm going to do a recap. Let's do a quick episode recap and then we're going to get into what we took from it. And I'm very, very curious to hear what the viewers and the listeners have to say because so many of us grew up in that era or partied in that era or had that, had the experience of that music that was so powerful to our adolescence, our teenage years, even our early adulthood. And there was this glorification of what manhood was, and particularly manhood in an African diaspora type of way. But let me just do my quick recap. Are you okay with that? Should we start that way?
Oh, well, before we start, before we get into anything, I just want to kind of ask you, what's the emotional temperature of this documentary? Is it sad? Is it enraging? Is it nauseating? Is it bleak? Just
I
what?
think I actually found it to be very, very balanced. I was surprised by it because, the hype around it was that 50 Cent has this big feud with P. Diddy and he just wanted to take him down. And don't get me wrong, 50 Cent himself has fueled those rumors with his social media and all of his interviews, but I actually think it was relatively balanced. And what I found about it was it talked about his success, how he climbed in a very neutral way. And in fact, it was a master class on show, don't tell. When you're talking about media or anything to do with writing, you're encouraged to show, not to tell the story. So
Right.
demonstrate. And I feel like it was such a masterclass in that because every person that provided any form of insider information was there, shared their experience, and then left you to figure it out. And there is so much that you will figure out just watching. Like the juror at the end blew my mind. I'm like, this woman just set this whole case up for a retrial.
Mm.
This was, I believe that there's, and don't get me wrong, once again, we are not legal experts, but it would not surprise me if her conduct in the documentary wouldn't set off the motion, the wheels in motion for a retrial, because she's such a fan girl. And like it's almost like she could you almost felt like she had a crush on the guy. And that of course is a little scary for a jury. Anyway, she pissed me off. She really well and got under my skin. She annoyed the hell out of me. And I was watching this and thinking, no, that's not how that's supposed to go. But the temperature was very, very even.
Mm.
What I also loved is that it used a lot of imagery, it used a lot of footage, actual empirical stuff. Like it used a lot of original footage, some of it that we had never seen before, had never been shared in the media before. The confession of the gangster from the West Side, Keefe D, who claimed to have been hired by P. Diddy. No one's heard that out loud before. I mean, it's been rumored for years that P. Diddy was responsible for killing Tupac. And I don't know about you, but there are two events in my lifetime where I can tell you exactly where I was when I got the news of it. One was 9/11, and the other one was when Tupac was shot. I can tell you exactly where I was standing up in the schoolyard. And so that it was such a pivotal moment because I feel like it was a real life experience of something that had only been fantasy up until that point in the culture, right?
So,
Wait, you okay for me to get into this recap?
just one more question is like for those who, because you talked about the judge fangirling, right? Like who
The jury, the juror.
the juror. So, talking about fangirling, right? Who is this episode really for tonight? Is it for the casual viewer, the hip hop fan, the survivor, or the person who's still in denial?
I feel like this could be for everyone who is adult and I feel first of all it's for the person who lived through that era, and I also feel like it's the person who's navigating relationships from that generation, because a lot of the way that we navigate the world has been informed by the culture that we've been surrounded by, right? And so for that reason, I think it's also important to I think for men in particular to listen to this, because I feel like there's language out there that that I've been kind of surprised by the commentary. There's a blindness to the impact of abuse on a person's mind and on their agency and on their ability to move. One of the things that I kept hearing in some of the comments were like, these people they're just complaining now because they want money, and if they could have always just left. And I don't think people understand the concept of grooming, the concept of what that feels like, the prison that grooming actually creates in a person's mind, where they don't feel like they can move, where they're so terrified at all times. And then his actions, I feel like, we getting into the details now and the opinion before we even get through the recap, because I feel like let's hustle the recap and kind of get into it, because I feel like that's the muscle, that's the meat of it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So episode 1 was introduction to P. Diddy as a child. His dad was not around. His dad died. He was killed. He was shot. His mom was a bit of a princess. Like she was, and this is of course my judgments, right? You getting the Matilda, the Matilda remake, right? So she was like, expensive wigs and lots of makeup. And so P. Diddy actually describes himself as attending his father's funeral as a toddler in chinchilla, right? So she was very much about appearances. But his neighbor shared that he was actually very badly physically abused. Like everyone got their licks, but this guy was getting beaten on. And there was also a mention, and this is one of the things I love about the documentary, is that it just kind of slips things in and makes you think, what the hell was that? Where he talks about them having a stage in their house and that he was required to dance for his mom's parties, right? But then there was like that other appearance thing. There was something else around appearances where you saw him as a private school boy who went to like a private school. This is not a black school. He was what's that?
I think it was a Catholic school he went to.
Yeah, it was a Catholic school. And so he developed this ability to code switch. This is my interpretation. He developed this demeanor that he would have in the wider world, and then he had his hip-hop demeanor, which was completely different. And so you actually could see it in his interviews when he would go on like things like Ellen DeGeneres and stuff like that. And his tone is like super like non-threatening, etc., and then some of his actions internally were just like all hardcore gangster. One of the things that was really important to me was that his friend from childhood was saying when they both went to work at Uptown Records as young people, he was like, he would do absolutely anything for Andre Harrell. Like, so he would like run down the block and come back and to get the man. I think it was like cheesecake or something like that, right? So he was always like making himself indispensable. But when the CEO took a liking to him, they had to build him up to be cool because he was not naturally cool.
So just to be clear, Andre Harrell is
he was CEO of Uptown Records. So okay. Uptown Records is where he started out before he started his own label, right? So there was a question there as well, as to whether or not he groomed him as well, like whether or not Andre groomed Puff Daddy, Sean Combs. Anyway, it all culminates in this event where he becomes this promoter because he's working at Uptown Records, but he's also like hustling to make money because he's all about the money. So he becomes this promoter and promotes this basketball game at City College. And at the basketball game, it was so poorly organized that there was a crash and 9 people died. Right. But then he rocketed to fame from that event. And that was small town fame. Like he rocketed to fame from that event. And he was in this really weird place where you could tell where he wanted to go. Right. But then he was hiding from, so let me back up. 9 people died in a stampede at this event that he organized. He then, not long after that, left Uptown Records and started Bad Boy Records. And he was like signing big artists. Like he signed that's when I think he signed Biggie, right? Biggie Small. Famous guy who passed away. We're going to get to that in a minute. But Biggie was like the face of his label. And he put his company, 75% of his company, in the name of his mother to avoid claimants from the City College stampede coming after him for money in the future. And I thought that was crazy. But I mean, I get it. That's business, right? Or that's what they say.
Right.
So he starts Bad Boy, and this is episode 2 now. And he's like getting really involved with promoting these rappers, but you can see that he's like overly involved. He wants to be in all their videos. He is getting involved with their women. And actually this started from the first episode where he was like going after girlfriends of his artists or girlfriends of people that he was representing.
So this is where Kim comes in now, right?
Sorry?
This is where Kim comes in? Yeah,
Kim Porter was I think his longest relationship. She had multiple kids for him, and she was actually one of his artist's girlfriend.
Mm.
Beautiful girl, and he was actually told she was out of his reach, but no, he actually fought, and he was like pursuing her so directly and gets involved with her. But I actually, she wasn't the first. There was one before that called Mila, and she was actually a really talented artist. And one thing I did not so much like about the documentary was the erasure of the talent of the women, because he went after talented women. He wasn't going for women that were like just beautiful. They had their own talent. But for him, it was really that they were somebody else's girl, right? That was his main thing. Like you could see it.
Right,
And
yeah.
so, but then episode 2 is not so much about relationships. It's really more about the business, where he had this thing for Tupac Shakur. So Biggie Small is his artist. Tupac is over on the West Coast, and he keeps trying to sign Tupac. Tupac is a rising star. Like Tupac is somebody that I hold so dear in my heart, even to this day, as an artist, because I felt like he was such an authentic beam of light. Don't get me wrong, he was a gangster, he was a bad boy, but he was not like, there was something that he was doing where he was trying to become something. And it's so funny because a lot of the commentary is like, Jada Pinkett Smith, oh girl, we know why you mad, because Will Smith will never be Tupac, right?
Jesus.
There's a lot of the commentary on TikTok. Listen, I took a deep dive. I've watched this. I would watch this beginning to end twice, and toward the end of this, I'm gonna like take a look at why is this such a big deal to me, right? So there's this relationship between Biggie and Tupac. Tupac wants to support Biggie's career, so Puff Daddy now wants to sign Tupac. Tupac says no, he's not interested in signing. So number one, Tupac is all that he wants to be. He's cool. He's naturally cool. He has street credibility. He's really good with the women. He is like incredibly talented, incredibly talented. And they describe Puff Daddy as having no musical talent whatsoever.
Can
So
I
he's
just stick this in here? Because
riding the coattails. Go ahead, say it.
I have to stick this in about Tupac, right? What a lot of people don't know about Tupac was actually a drama kid in school. And Tupac was
He
actually
was.
Shakespeare and that kind of thing. So even though he was a gangster and yeah, he was actually very educated, very literate, and very, very expressive. And I think that's what lent to his success as in his career in hip hop.
I think his authenticity was part of it too. Like you can just
Yeah,
look at him and know that this man means to do something in the world. Like there's a place for him in the world, right? But I so in this episode now ends with um Diddy sets up Tupac to get shot in New York. And he's not actually accused of it, but it is implied in the documentary. Because Tupac shows up to record with Biggie at Diddy's studio, and Biggie has no idea, sends his brethren down to go collect him because he sees him downstairs. And the little guy that goes downstairs is held at gunpoint and told to get back in the elevator, and they shoot Tupac 5 times outside the door. Right? So of course Tupac thinks that Biggie has set him up to be shot. He then goes to prison because of some rape charge, which was also questionable or questioned, not necessarily questionable, but we're going to get to that, questioning victims, right? And he actually like ends up in prison, comes out of prison, and starts recording with Suge Knight, who is the West Coast version of Diddy. Because Suge Knight, he was portrayed as a really great guy in the show, but he was a gangster. He was no question about it. He was a blood, right? So he was an interesting guy. They now end up in this situation. I'm just storytelling this right now because this is like, and this is my version. This is my interpretation of what I picked up, as well as what I picked up from the press around it. Right. In the end, Tupac gets shot. It really suggests, this entire episode suggests that Tupac was set up to be shot by Puff Daddy. There was a Crip who actually confessed to the FBI. And it's the recording of that is in the documentary, which blew my mind. I have no idea how these guys got hold of it, but they got hold of some stuff to put this documentary together. He gets shot, and then the beef, like he passes away, and then the beef really goes crazy. So now we're on episode 3. We haven't even gotten to the relationship stuff yet, but somewhat, right?
right.
So he uses, I believe, the way I interpret what they describe is that Biggie was used as a human shield for his ego to grow and put a face forward of not being afraid of this East West drama. So 6 months after Tupac is shot, they had been warned not to go to the West Coast. And yet he packs up Biggie and takes him to the West Coast. And then Biggie was supposed to get on a flight the night after performing. And he was not, he told him to cancel the flight. He needs to come to this party. And that night, Biggie gets shot. And that's when Puff Daddy actually really rises to fame, because now Biggie, these two like powerful faces at the front of hip hop and rap, really, it was really rap at that time. It wasn't even really hip hop. We're now out of the way. He steps into the vacuum and offers to say, he says that he's going to have the biggest funeral ever in the history of New York for Biggie. Does this funeral and then charges Biggie's estate for it, right? So now we get to episode 4, which is the last episode, and this is where the actual sexual stuff comes in, and the relationship stuff comes in. But all along, he's had relationships with a man by the name of, oh gosh, what is his name? Kirk Burroughs. Kirk Burroughs was his close friend from Uptown Records, who went with him to start Bad Boy. It looks like Kirk Burroughs did a lot of the organization. And one of the things that was notable in the first episodes was that he said my friend was starting to change. I could see he was changing. So there was this one day when Kirk Burroughs was called to Diddy's office, buzzing to come to the office, only to come in to see a woman giving him oral sex. And he was like, "What did you call me for?" He's like, "Well, he just wanted him to see it." And that struck me as a real character defining moment in the entire description, right? But then we move forward, because he does Kurt pretty awful. But I don't want to focus too much on Kurt, because our focus is on the relationship stuff. So episode 4 now, he gets in this relationship. Kim has his children, but Cassie, they can describe Kim as wife and Cassie as wifey. She's 18 years old. She comes to New York at 18 years old. And my heart broke, because I'm thinking about kids in my life who are 18 and just how vulnerable they are to the world. And this is where the grooming starts, right? She's not actually in the episode. She's being described by other persons who were around at the time. His bodyguard, who stood outside the door while she was getting beat up. There's a male prostitute that was hired to do things to her in his presence. She was drugged regularly. She participated in drug use, right? And one of the things that really struck me is that there's so much commentary about, oh, she could have just left. That's one of the jurors that actually was in the episode, was saying that, I don't know, these are two people in love. I mean, if she wanted to, she could just leave. She just wanted the fame. But this woman was brought into the business as a client, and he promised her a 10-record deal and never got around to making her next record. For 10 years, she was physically abused. She was sexually abused. And she's the one that was in the videos of getting beat up in the hallway. But there were other people that were physically abused. There was a young man who was a producer who was hired, and he actually competed for his position. And I don't think people realize the mental state that puts someone in. Like, you competed for that position. This is precious to you. He went through a camp, and it was whittling down. He was one of the last people standing because he played multiple instruments. He was promised so many things. He was promised $250,000 to produce this album that was taking incredibly long, almost 2 years to record. And all the time he was being drugged at parties and waking up with people that he did not expect to wake up with. Some of them women, and some of them Diddy himself. And in one case, he actually describes himself as waking up still sore. So of course, there's a lot of suggestions about that. Creepy, right?
Yeah, very.
Another young lady who was actually, she's important to me because she was in the band that he created, Danity Kane, in his show. He went into pop, the making of the band, I think is what the show was called. And this is a white girl named Aubrey O'Day, who was the face of the band. He kept describing her as talentless, but she's a looker, right? He fired her for looking too promiscuous, but then he was sending her pictures of his body parts and dirty emails. And then there is some of the evidence that's gone to court suggests that she was seen being sexually assaulted by him and another guy, but she was completely out of it and she has no memory of it. So she has no idea if this happened or not. And that to me is such a difficult thing to grasp, like to just imagine being in that position. Was I assaulted? Was I not? Do I even want to know? And so she describes this position that she's in, and it's like terrifying. She's a brilliant girl, right? A lot of these people are really, really smart people. And then finally, there was a young woman, and these are just the ones that stood out to me that I'm bringing up right now. Capricorn Clark was his assistant, and she said she describes. Okay, so she said that her mom was a drug addict, so the chaos that she was walking into was a chaos that she understood, and that to me is like someone who's already been kind of inured to violence and inured to that lifestyle, right? That's what I interpreted that to mean. He actually kidnaps her to go and chase down Cassie's new boyfriend, go to his house, the one that he allegedly blew up his car, Kid Cudi, with a gun to go and kill this guy, and calls Cassie up to say, Cassie, if you don't show up, he's gonna kill me, right? And she describes being threatened to be killed on her first day because of her relationships. Cassie shows up and gets beaten by Puff Daddy. Shows up to rescue her friend and gets beaten. So at the end of it, there's so much to the footage. There's so much to layers to this. But the sexual stuff is the stuff that, of course, we're focusing on Love and Lies. Because there's a lot of love discussion and there's a lot of lies. This man was surrounded by people who either loved him and respected him and were loyal to him, but were being really badly treated, or they were there because they were in a business relationship with him, and he promised them things that they never got, right? And so I came out of that with a bunch of lessons. But before that, so that's like the end of my recap.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
a lot.
Say that again.
I know that was a lot, but what did you get from that? Because it's like, I know you started it, but did you finish it?
Well, I mean, I was watching it, and and in listening to your recap, I had some questions, for the anybody who really watched the documentary. I mean, do you think that this story is presented as an explanation, an excuse, or a warning?
I don't know that it's an explanation or an excuse. I don't think it was presented as that at all. And in fact, in all the fanfare leading up to it, there's a lot, like 50 Cent kind of comes at this kind of like he comes at it like a comedian, right? So he just like torments and taunts and so on. He's one of those people you just never want to piss off. And he came at it in such a way that made me think that no, this is him getting retribution for something. This is him revealing. I feel like it's a revelation. I can tell you what the impact of it is on a mind like mine. I don't know that I can tell you what the intention was, but I don't think it was to excuse away or to explain away. It did allow for the other side. There are people who are still friends with him, people who care about him, who were interviewed, but even them trying to be positive to him, about him in the documentary, ended up damning him as well. It was like sideways revelations.
So, I mean, what in terms of the sexual violence, right? Because that's you say you want to get into that, right? Do you think that it's about power? And like what types of power does the documentary show?
It's great. Actually, I think it's really focuses on power more than anything else. Capricorn Clark describes him as, if you don't know the guy and he walks into a room full of people, like you think he's a big deal, but if it's just you and him in a room, he's this small, and she puts her two fingers up, and like he's tiny. He's a narcissist who's incredibly insecure. He was insecure about Tupac. He couldn't be him, so he had to get rid of him. He couldn't impress him, so he had to go. You know, he was offended by the fact that this man was not impressed by him.
Mm.
So I think that it ends up being a bit of a warning, but you know, I feel more than anything else, it has impacted me in some weird way, because I feel like I'm watching like culture that I grew up surrounded by, because of course Cayman is very much impacted by this stuff, right?
Right.
It's just collapsing into horror.
Right.
You know, you knew that the music was about violence. You could hear it in the music. Like, there's a lot of the music that was about violence, but it was a presentation as if this was cool, this was manly, this was masculine, right? So I feel like it's a commentary on Black American toxic masculinity more than anything else.
Well, let me ask you this: what part hurt more? I mean, you talk about this hip hop myth collapsing.
Yeah.
What hurt more, like that the myth was false, or that we helped keep it alive for so long?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put something up and let you see this, right? This is a comment that I saw years ago that I've kept in my back pocket for future use.
Mm.
And it is a quote by Bell Hooks, who is a writer on black feminism. And she says, many Black men with hostility toward the white male power structure are often eager to gain access to that power. Their expressions of rage are less a critique of the white patriarchal social order and more a reaction to not being allowed full participation in the power game.
Mm.
Right? So rather than make objections to the community being oppressed, or, you know, there being problems with problems within the community, right? Rather than focusing on those things, you're focusing on grasping the power that the oppressor had, because that's what you want. Your objection isn't to people being oppressed. It's actually to people being people having power that you don't have.
Mm.
And that bothers me. So I think that has been it's been a demonstration of that to me. But you know, it also rewrites the whole soundtrack of my teenage years. Like, a lot of this was struggle music, and it was based on horror, and it was displayed in such a I think of the Big Papa video and the one by P. Diddy that they say that the Big Papa video was kind of based on.
Mm.
And it was like all glorification. All you see is scattered half naked women all over the place. And you see, like, you know, lots of bright colors, and everyone seems happy to be there. And, you know, the man is at the center, and it just really centers men. And it bothered me. It really bothered me so much about that, because what was happening in the background was actually the real side of that type of behavior. Another thing, I mean, this is going to be me up on my soapbox, right? So let me just get myself up on my soapbox. I need some music for this, for my soapbox. I get up on my soapbox so much that I have to, like, put the image up there.
Matilda on her sexy Matilda speech.
Check her out now. Look at her. She's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? One of the things that I really did, the lessons that I took away from it, is that sexual violence is not a sexual orientation. It comes out of a desire to take power away from someone. He was accused of sexually violating his business partner, a man, the women that came through his record label. No one was safe. No one was safe. And there are people that are not even sure whether they were victims or not. It is such a mind, like, I can't cuss that hard online. That's a little too much. But, you know, it's such a mind scramble just to think about that. Like, I don't even know if it was assaulted, you know? What's that?
I said it is after hours. It is a late show. So if you want to express yourself,
it's a bit of a mind fuck. It really is, because you're like, can you imagine not knowing if you're one of the victims and someone says that they think you are? God have mercy. But you know, another thing that I took out of it too is that childhood creates monsters. Like, you can trace all of his behavior back to what his mother put him through. But it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse either, because it's a matter of character. There are people that come from those backgrounds and choose to come outside of it. But
No,
no, he actually idealized people that were horrific. Hide your kids, hide your wife.
hide your kids, hide your wife. So I have to ask you a question though.
Uh-huh.
At what point, because you brought up childhood creating monsters. At what point does empathy for a child become dangerous sympathy for the adult? Because we saw what it was when you know, everybody, you know, Bad Boys for Life and P Diddy, and you know, people idolized Diddy and people wanted to be around. This was before all of this came out. At what point does the empathy for a child become dangerous sympathy for the adult?
I think the empathy for a child becomes dangerous sympathy for the adult when it removes accountability from the child for making choices of their own.
Mm.
That's my opinion. And there's a I feel like, you know, we like to put these things in opposition, but they're two you know, two things can be true. Two things can be true at the same time. This man was clearly a victim of major abuse at home, but he was also the child of a gangster who wanted to be a gangster. Like, his dad was shot because he was a gangster. You know, that's the description. At least that's the way he was described to his son. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I go up on my soapbox for one thing, and one thing that I just need to like make sure that I hold up in the air as my number one thing, is that grooming creates a mental prison. There is a myth that you could have just left. Why didn't she leave? Why didn't Cassie leave? Like, Cassie tried to leave and he blew up her boyfriend's car. Cassie tried to leave and he beat her up at the elevator. Cassie tried to leave and he threatened to kill Capricorn Clark. Right? So there's a myth of you could have just left. And then every time she tried to leave, she came back and then reversed her attempt to leave by appeasing. And you see it in emails where she was talking, like, she was going back and forth with him. That's another thing. He was so creepy with his communication. This man was sending voice notes to his producer. Oh, I miss you with those cute little hats. Like, oh my God. This is like, I would be uncomfortable with that, much less this man that is like, has kids and, you know, is there for his career to take off. You know, he would send emails to Aubrey O'Day about masturbating and how she needs to submit to him. Right?
So just to be clear for the listening audience, I mean, because you mentioned a mental prison, describe what that mental prison in plain terms looks like. What are the bars made of?
I'm gonna look this up. Right? So AI is saying grooming is a manipulative process used by abusers to establish a relationship with a victim, gain their trust, and eventually exploit them. This insidious tactic keeps people trapped in abusive situations by gradually eroding their self-worth, making them dependent on the abuser, and creating psychological barriers that prevent them from leaving. Typical grooming typically unfolds in stages over time. Isolation, building trust and dependence, normalization of harmful behavior, like abusive actions are slowly introduced and rationalized, and the abuser might minimize the behavior or blame the victim for it, or frame it as a necessary part of a committed relationship. And then finally creating fear and intimidation. And so the impact is that there's an erosion of self-worth, isolation and lack of support, fear of consequences, and then they trauma bond with each other, which is something that you actually see with some of these victims. And then on top of it, there's financial dependence. This guy was these people's boss, and he was not paying them. That was another thing that blew my mind. He was not paying people money, and he was claiming to be a billionaire. Basic little things. Like, I think the only people that did not describe not being paid properly were the sex workers.
So, what would you say to someone listening who recognizes those bars in their own relationship, those own, um, grooming tactics?
I actually I think I'm much better to give advice to the people around them,
Okay.
right? I am not I have never been in that position, and I'm not a professional. However, I've been in the position of the friend supporting someone who is being abused. And one of the things that I would say is that, it is important for you to not come at this with judgment for them not leaving, because it actually adds to their own shame. It adds to their shame. Oh my God, I can't. Why are you still there? Why won't you leave? And it's hard not to say that. It's hard not to say that. And so instead of like commenting on their decisions, which are clearly irrational based on their position, the advice that I actually give it would be to like make sure that your door is always open.
Mm.
Make sure that they know that they, and not to come and bitch and moan and do nothing, but if you need me when the time comes, I am here. Right? So that's an important piece. But this is such a unique position because the question of consent is eroded, right? Sexual harassment is one thing. Sexual harassment at work is one thing. Sexual harassment by someone who presents within his world as all powerful and all controlling, that is terrifying. That is completely terrifying, I highly recommend actually watching this though, because it was such a revelation to me of what people are living with and I can just imagine, like, there were Epstein files, additional files that were released in the last day or two. And I am just like, I don't know how much of this I can actually absorb. But this one feels like this is closer to home because it connects to like the culture that I was connected to as a teenager, you know? But one of the things I did not like as well was the discussion around like, this is just how business is. This is how the business is. This is the gatekeepers. And it terrifies me because when you think about so many young people have gone into media, gone into music, gone into, I don't know, like they aspire to become this. These people have been put up as gods of our time, and it's kind of scary that that's the gatekeeper to your success in life, and they're just gonna sexually assault you to get where they want to go. It really blew my mind. It really blew my mind. So that's my soapbox. Oh, there's one last thing. So I talked about grooming and how grooming actually erodes the self-worth of a person and it keeps them in an abusive situation. So, I was so annoyed with the jurors. One of them was like, "Oh, she could have just left." And I was so annoyed because it was such a erasure of the psychological facts of what happens in these types of situations. But one of the things that I realized that this guy, Kirk Burroughs, has been receiving so much positive support because of he was actually the biggest and probably the earliest victim of Puff Daddy when it comes to physical abuse, when it comes to financial abuse. And he also made it really clear that he was also sexually abused, right? This was his business partner. Bad Boy Records could not have taken off without him. And he was the first person to stand up when Biggie Smalls died. Puff Daddy attempted to rewrite his contract so that he would not be paid. His estate would not be paid. His family would not be paid as much as they had initially agreed. And he refused to do it. So what we actually notice is that the people who are victims don't find it in themselves to stand up for themselves, but they find it in themselves to stand up for somebody else. And that's something I also noticed with Cassie is like, so when Capricorn had a gun to her head, right? Capricorn is held up by him taken to Kid Cudi's house to kill Kid Cudi, kidnapped pretty much, with this gun waving around her, and she calls her freaking out. Like, he tells me he won't leave until you come. Cassie drops everything to go and rescue her friend. And it was such a telling thing for me that these people are not powerless. They are powerless to act on their own behalf. Victims in these moments feel powerless to act in their own behalf because of their own eroded self-worth so badly. Like this, so this is me in my soapbox for the day,
And
right?
and to that point, right? And there's that part of the grooming aspect as well. It's isolating you from other people, so you feel alone and you feel powerless, right? So it's
And
like,
that aloneness feels like rejection.
right. So if you're a bystander, because you said you were talking to the people around the victim, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
your job is to support.
Yeah, yeah. But even the male prostitute attempted to like stop him from hitting her, and he looked at him and was like, "You ain't gonna do nothing." So
Mm.
there's a this man's a bully. This man is like terrifying. But it just really struck home to me too. Like this is music. And I remember when we were growing up, there were so many people who were like, this is music that is bringing violence into our children's minds. And now I'm looking back and I really hate to say this out loud. And please forgive me for saying it out loud. I'll deny it tomorrow. But maybe they were right. Maybe they were right. Because we all know someone like Diddy, who, if they had that kind of power, they would behave that way.
Hmm.
Think about it. And we
So,
all know the kind of guys that would stand around and let it happen.
well, I guess because people feel like they don't want to get involved, or that's between them and I don't want to be in
So
the
it's a
mix.
very convenient time to mind your own business.
Mm,
Right? That's
mhm.
a really convenient time to mind your own business.
So do you feel that this documentary is
This thing says hallelujah.
do you think that this documentary then is indicative of a cultural reckoning?
Yes, I think it is. I think it is a mirror that is being held up because nothing was that was said. Everything that was said came from a person's own experience or came from factual receipts,
Mm,
you know?
mm. And I like, and and that you brought up Kirk Burroughs, right? It just shows that men can be victims too. Like this isn't something that just affects women or little girls, right?
That was
Um,
actually really important to me to acknowledge.
and there are a lot of men, like I mean, and I know you talk about your soapbox. I'm gonna go up on my soapbox. There are a lot of men who have been groomed and who have been sexually abused, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because they're men, they're expected to be quiet about it.
It's even more shame.
Yeah, so the shame sort of forms a muzzle for them, and if we
Mm-hmm.
only recognize only one kind of victim, we create safe hiding places for the abusers for the other types of victims, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember there was it was on Mall Road about an incident of sexual abuse in the jails here, and I remember going through the comments and reading the comments and being absolutely disgusted by what I was reading. I mean, there were people who, well, you better don't drop the soap. Oh well, well, I guess he deserved it. Well, I guess that's what they're doing, and it was just like no wonder men don't want to come forward. So imagine now a guy who has been through that and reading these types of comments being made about an alleged rape that happened in jail. I mean, rape is rape no matter who it happens to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now seeing this, like, okay, well, if I talk up, my masculinity is now called into question, or I must have wanted it. I should have fought him off when there's there's so much shame around this thing, especially for men. So I mean, I commend Kirk Burroughs
He
for
wasn't the only one. And the young man named Rod, a little Rod, was being so badly attacked online because like he's there for the money. I'm like, the man was there to do his job. And he was waking up having been drugged. There was so little compassion for him. in some of the comments online, and I was really blown away by that, because I cannot imagine what he's dealing with right now. Like, God bless him. Like, I have such a special place in my heart for him, because this is a young man who was also vulnerable and had a dream. And these are people who have dreams, who want to create, who are incredibly talented. This is some of the cream of the cream of the cream of talent.
Mm.
And, you know, there are a few people that were missing from this that have been kind of notable absences. One was Justin Bieber, and another was Usher.
Okay.
Both of whom had relationships with P. Diddy when they were very young. And
All right. To
and
be
right,
clear, a relationship, you mean just like relationship?
professional relationship.
Okay. Good.
They were represented by him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is, I mean, there's a lot of rumor around them. There's also a notable absence of Lil Kim, who was involved with Bad Boy, and also a very little said around Kim Porter, who was, they suggested that she might have been murdered. Like, there's actually so many people that have died around this man, either from a heart attack, which could easily have been a heart attack given the amount of drug use around him, but there's also been so much hushed up as well, because there's a weird incident that was described about him shooting someone in the bathroom and just leaving the body there. Someone will clean it up. And it's like the lawlessness of this, and it made me really sad, because these are the descendants of people who were enslaved, right? As are we. And it really, really bothers me that what Bell Hooks has said is actually coming true. Like, they are seeking the power of the oppressor rather than seeking the equality that we all deserve. And it bothers me so much. And it's like, this has been haunting me, and it's making me actually go back and listen to all of my Tupac music, because Tupac said it. He said all of this stuff in his music, and we all just thought it was for the, you know, today we would say for the gram, but, and you know, it was just for the music. It wasn't for the music. He's actually a lot. I'm listening now to Tupac and actually hearing a whole lot more. Hit 'Em Up has actually probably been replayed more in the last couple of weeks, than any other time after he passed away, you know. It was a hell of a time. It was a hell of a thing to watch, because it was so disturbing. It is so impactful. It is so demonstrative. It was incredibly well done. And by the way, I should say this, right? They have trigger warnings before the episodes that have actual violence in them, but it was not the most graphic of documentaries, and I had expected it to be graphic. So if you have problems with graphic video, right, I don't know that there is a little bit of stuff in there, but I was actually really surprised. You really mostly saw the aftermath. The most violent thing that you actually saw was Cassie being beat up in the corridor of the hotel, which was actually viral online before they went to court. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to process. I think we're facing a reckoning now, because I do believe that type of masculinity, that view of masculinity, has come into our own culture. I mean, we see it with our politicians. You know, not just our politicians. I don't mean just Cayman politicians. I mean the Caribbean. I mean also the U.S. But there is a abuse of people with impunity that is sexual in nature, but truly about power, and about taking the power from someone else, rather than creating something in your life that adds to your own power. You have to destroy someone else's. That makes you a very, very, very small person.
So my question to you with that now is, why do you think sex has to be the vehicle for that?
You know, this is something that I studied back in college, and we looked at sexual violence as the inadequacy of rape laws. We looked at sexual violence being used in war. Um, it is one of the most violating forms of harm you can do to a person because you are invading the one thing that is sacred and sacrosanct to them, and that is their body.
Mm.
I compare it to an earthquake. You know, like you're always kind of weirded out for a few days after an earthquake. You get hit with anxiety because the one thing that you trust in this world is that the ground is beneath you. And if the ground starts to move, then what can you trust?
Mm.
Right? In the same way, if your body, you're told that your body is yours. This is your gift. This is your
Your
vehicle.
body is
It
your
is you.
temple. It's your
It is
temple.
you. Yeah, it's your temple.
We've
Right?
always grown up hearing that. Yeah.
And then it's violated, right? And then it is invaded. It's an invasion. And it leaves behind so much mental anguish because did I attract it? Is there something? The first thing a victim often does is question, like, was this me? Did I deserve this?
Mm.
And if they land on an answer of yes, or not a solid no, that can eat away at their self-esteem, their self-respect, and you start to see so much harm come out of that. And you see it in children who have been abused.
And it
It's
goes back to that.
frightening.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a frightening thing. That's all I have to say.
Oh, no, but it goes. If you could pull up back that quote by Bell Hooks, right? You know, talking about power structure and then wanting to gain access to that power. We see that with grooming and with sexual abuse and sexual assault is, you know, like the abused eventually becomes the abuser.
Yeah, and can I tell you something else, right? I'm gonna
Sure.
throw this out there just because this is very, very fringe. This is somewhere on my TikTok, right? There was someone who spoke to what she called destiny swapping. So you can't become this thing that you want to be, so you steal it from someone who could be it. And it was actually like a form of witchcraft. And some of the things that this guy did in his freak offs. So, for instance, and I'm really sorry to gross anyone up. Trigger warning before I say this, but he would collect the baby juice of the male prostitute after he was finished doing what he was doing to his partner. And he would keep it. And he asked him, like, what are you doing with my stuff? And he said such some weird stuff, like he'd make her drink it, he would do all this other stuff, right? But in root work and in voodoo, in like Haitian voodoo, which I'm gonna come right back to, and in obia, and in any form of witchcraft, body fluids are very, very powerful. Body fluids are something that are used to like affect significant ritual, right? So it's a creepy, creepy thought. But once again, this was such a good exercise of show don't tell. They didn't say that. Someone on TikTok saw it, noticed it, and were like, "Oh, that's some creepy stuff. This man is actually doing like destiny trading," which was super, super creepy. But I'm gonna come right back to it. One last thing before, because I know we have to wrap this thing up, right? And thank you guys for tuning in today. But one last thing, he has a tattoo of Erzeli Dantor, who is a voodoo goddess or Loa, on his back. And Erzeli Dantor is a protector of women, protector of women who are victims. And it's crazy that this man tattooed this thing onto his back. So of course, all of the voodoo practitioners or all of the Caribbean Haitians and so on are like, oh, this guy set himself up for this. Like you put her on your back and you expect to escape her her wrath. So
Mm.
it's like there's some creepy like fringe stuff that were going on as well. It just reminds me of like the Illuminati rumors that were going around many years ago. But I know we have to wrap up, bro. But you know, I could talk about this for a while. I'm still not out from under it. I'm watching it so like I'm still like looking at all the social media and stuff about it because it boy it rough. It is so
Yeah,
rough.
yeah, I can imagine. Well, tonight, for all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Tonight wasn't about gossip, and it wasn't about picking a side. It was about facing something a lot of us don't want to admit, that, power can make people dangerous and it can make the rest of us quiet. If you listened tonight and felt your stomach turn, that reaction that you're feeling is information. It's your conscience reminding you that that whole bad boy myth, the whole industry excuses, the jokes, the silence, none of that is harmless when real people are getting hurt. And I think that's the biggest take home lesson from this documentary. So here's what we're going to leave you with tonight. Stop asking questions like, why didn't they leave? And start asking, what made it unsafe? And what would support have looked like for all these victims? Stop calling exploitation just business, and stop protecting reputations more than you protect people. And if any of this conversation hit close to home, if you've been controlled, if you've been groomed, threatened, or made to doubt your own reality, please hear this clearly. You are not weak, you are not stupid, and you are not alone. Help exists, and you deserve safety. Once again, you are not alone, you are not stupid, you are not weak. Okay? This is
one
real
last
talk.
thing.
Sure.
If this affects you in any way, the crisis center is the place to go. Like they have a hotline. The phone number is 943-2422.
2422. Yeah. So this is real talk, love and lies. We're not here to worship myths. We're here to tell the truth about what love looks like when power is involved. Because when power lies, love pays the price. Good night, K-Man. Good night, world. Good night, Tilda.
Night. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.